welcome back to Mike's Diabetes World. Let me just say we're doing a reshoot. Yesterday's video, I screwed up. I just couldn't get it right. I didn't know where to look. It wasn't a good video. But today, we're taking a look. We're doing much better. In fact, let me just sign in here. And we're 6% or 6%, 6 millimoles per deciliter or per liter, 3.125 units of insulin, fully calibrated, being without corrections for a while. My blood sugar's down. Time in range, 75%, 25 above, 75% below, and 0 below 3.9, which is a point we've been trying to work for a while. And average sugar is in millimoles 8.4. This is still a little high. Today I want to discuss, I know it's going to sound like I finished off today off one, starting a new segment with today. I want to discuss T1D and outside effects. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Okay, let me start off with this story of something that old endocrinologist told me, trying to boost up while we were having problems with my blood sugars, but that we could solve things. Okay, it was about a lady who was doing everything right she had her blood sugars going great for a month, and then all of a sudden for 3 days her blood sugars were totally out, and then she'd fall back into line and everything would be going great. They pondered, I don't know how you ponder, but they pondered this question, and they started asking, what are you doing different these 3 days? And she listed off what she did different. And every month on those 3 days that her blood sugars went berserk, she would get her hair dyed. She had wonderful red hair. But she'd get her hair dyed. There was sugar in the dye. So we learned that there was sugar in dye which was causing your blood sugar to rise. In fact, just a little side note, did you know that there is sugar in toothpaste? We're surrounded by so much different sugar and everything that it's hard to follow your diabetes care plan. there's a story from one of the other diabetic vloggers out there that um, she went into a restaurant type, fast food type restaurant, and filled up a cup of what she thought was Diet Pop, but it ended up to be regular pop. And that threw her blood sugars in a tizzy because she obviously didn't account for the carbs because she thought it was diet when it wasn't. Now, before you guys all start asking me, did she sue them? I have no idea. I just remember listening to the story one day when I was watching a vlog, and I don't know if they took legal action or not. It sounds to me like they have a pretty solid case if they did, but I don't think they were really in it for the money, if you know what I mean. But it's hard, especially if you're a kid. Um, I know I was part of a scout group for years that was across from the 7-Eleven that I worked at. And they would go and they would get, um, oh, sorry, after the scouting meeting, they'd all go into the 7-Eleven. And there was a kid who was a diabetic, and he and his family would go in there and they would say, "Oh no, you can't have pop. You can't have any of those treats. No, you can't have that." And I kept hearing, "No, no, no." But sugar sells. And the candy aisle is where all the kids went, and the Slurpee machines is where they all went. It was mind blowing. But there's brightly colored package, and we all like those sweet treats. With people with pumps nowadays, or even people with um, needles of regular insulin, can count the carbs, take the insulin, and type it in, and enjoy their time, their time, enjoy the sweet things of life. But you see, we're inundated all the time. It's like when I was in the hospital in my early 20s, I was put in with a new diabetic because they thought, great, put an old diabetic with a new diabetic, and he could help them. This guy was so depressed about having type 1 diabetes that he couldn't go out drinking anymore. And I said, well, you can't. You just have to be a little bit more cautious and maybe not go out and get drunk. You could still go out and have a drink. And I don't know. He, I think, signed himself out of the hospital. But while he was in the hospital, the whole room had to be dark. There couldn't be any light. Kind of like how I live now, but I'm not hiding from anything right now. I just like a dark room. I don't like the overhead lights here, so I have lights on when I'm doing this. But I like watching my YouTube. But children growing up, young teens, there's always hamburgers and ice cream and everything. It's, oh, well, you'll just have to count carbs. I understand where they're coming from, and that is not a good thing for them to have. But we have to give in. Parents and adults, sometimes we have to give in. I was, as a scouting man, I had a different diabetic kid, a child, or cub at the time, and he knew how to bring down his blood sugar. We had real problems in watching people's blood sugars go up. And I can remember starting New Year's in a hospital with this kid. We called his parents, the parents were informed, and he said, "Well, I don't know why you had to take me to the hospital. All I had to do was run around and get my blood sugar down. Because it's 10 o'clock at night, we're responsible for you, and your blood sugars weren't coming down normally. We had to get you taken care of." But again, outside effects can be other people watching your kids. We erred on the side of caution, but that can be outside effects on your diabetes. I can remember we had these business luncheons where they would serve soup. It was sort of like an all afternoon. We would meet at midday and then we'd have soup, and then they'd talk more, and then we'd have the main course, and then they'd talk more. I couldn't do those meetings after a while. I would have to, before the meeting, eat and then attend the meeting and say no thank you to anything. I had a person who told me after, "Wow, why, how could you sit there and not eat with everyone else?" I said, "Listen, I'm full. I don't need anymore." It's, getting upset to people who are diabetic for so-called cheating. My blood sugar problems for years were, "Oh, you're cheating." But there's so many different effects out there, and people were, I would go away for weekends because, "Oh, you couldn't have what they are eating. You have to follow this little book." And life gets in the way of doing stuff sometimes. Just did a whole video on that. So we really have to watch that. So just remember, outside effects can cause your blood sugars to go berserk out of your fault. Just deal with the situation, get your blood sugars down, and then you should be okay. With that, have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now. My email address is Mike's Diabetes World at gmail.com. All one line. Drop me